Hi everyone, it's Arena, your favorite book, TV, and movie nerd. Today, I will be tier ranking every podcast I've ever listened to. I am not what the kids call a podcast girly. I did have a pretty strong phase at the end of middle school, beginning of high school, where I was very into them. Then I fell off them for a while. More recently, I've gotten back into them a little bit in this more recent phase. It's been 50-50 if I actually listen to an entire episode of a podcast or if I just get really into watching extended clips on TikTok. But I'm still going to count that because I have logged enough time to form opinions.
Are you not
Again, I am
ashamed of yourself?
using my own homemade tier ranking system as opposed to that stupid website. Today, I have 5 categories. At the top in blue is Love That for me. This tier is for the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the elite. The next tier down is Good Vibes Only in green. This means that this podcast is quite good, but it's not perfection. Next is Everybody Gets a Podcast in yellow. This is the mid tier. It's meh, it's average. It's like Oprah gave everybody a podcast and it's boring. You see? Next category is Are You Not Embarrassed in orange?
Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
This is bad, embarrassing, not a good time, but not the absolute worst. Last, and definitely least, is Stop Giving Men Microphones in red. This is the worst of the worst. It's bad, it's trash, the bar is in hell, and it's probably a man's fault. So, there's that. Now that we've seen our categories, I'm going to show you all of the podcasts. These are all of the podcasts I have ever listened to, at least that I remember. It is entirely possible that I have forgotten one or two, but the fact that I forgot them tells me that if there are any, they probably belong in Stop Giving Men Microphones. There are 52 podcasts here, and I have listened to all of them, whether it be in its intended audio form on Apple Podcasts, the accompanying video on YouTube, or clips on YouTube Shorts or TikTok. I only counted podcasts that I specifically chose to listen to. I have heard bits and pieces of many other podcasts that other people around me were listening to, but I was passively listening in the background. If I didn't actively choose to listen to something, I didn't include it here. With that, let's get into the ranking. What am I going to pick first? Let's just go with the first one I have here. Brown Love. I think that this is going to go in Good Vibes Only. It was good. I liked it. It was hosted by Dasha Polanco from Orange is the New Black and consisted of her interviewing different Latine actors from various Netflix programming and talking about the community and how it's represented in media. Next, Love and Norabang. This was a fictional podcast miniseries. It's a rom-com and it starred Francia Raisa and Justin H. Min as the two romantic leads. It was really cute. It was produced by a Latine entertainment company called Sonoro and the Mashup Americans, which, as you can see, is another podcast I listen to. This is also going to go in Good Vibes. I liked it a lot. It was very cute. I would definitely recommend it. There are a few little plot and character details that could use some tweaking, so that's why it's not higher in the rankings. Next, Money Honeys. If you've been living under a rock, the five main producers slash talent of BuzzFeed's Ladylike channel left the company several years ago and have gone on to do lots of other things. However, the five of them have done quite a few collaborative projects with each other. One of them is Money Honeys, which is a podcast all about finance, specifically geared towards women. It's hosted by Devin Lytle, Freddie Ransom, and Chantel Houston. They talk about all kinds of stuff like credit cards, how to pay for a wedding, building financial independence as a freelancer, all kinds of interesting things. I'm going to put them in Everybody Gets a Podcast. It's definitely educational and useful, but this is not something that I really gravitate towards content wise. It's nice to know that it's out there as a resource, but this is not something that I am looking out for every week. I totally forgot to say how I listened to these so far. I watched Money Honeys on YouTube and I listened to both Love and Norebang and Brown Love on Apple Podcasts. Next, The Mashup Americans, a podcast produced by a production company of the same name. It's an interview-based podcast all about multiculturalism and how it affects people's daily lives and how they see the world. It's hosted by two best friends slash professional writers, Amy S. Choi on the left and Rebecca Lehrer on the right. Amy is Korean American and her husband is Latino. And Rebecca is a Salvadoran Ashkenazi Jew married to a white Christian man. They both have kids, so they talk a lot about the cultures they grew up in and how that interacts with the cultures that their partners and therefore children are also a part of. They also interview a lot of really cool guests. I was a big fan and I listened religiously. If any of that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I would definitely recommend. I listened to the entire thing on Apple Podcasts. It has to go and love that for me, and it has a special place in my heart as a fellow mashup American, which is their term for anyone who lives in America and lives a multicultural life. Two hot takes. It is one of several Reddit podcasts that I have listened to. I'm not a religious listener. I do watch episodes on YouTube every once in a while. Occasionally, I watch clips on YouTube Shorts or TikTok. I think I'm going to put it in Everybody Gets a Podcast. I find it entertaining, partly because Reddit is crazy and partly because I like the hosts. Like basically every Reddit podcast, it's the host giving their opinion and advice on the situation in the Reddit post. Hot take, haha. I don't always agree with what they say. So that's why it goes in Everybody Gets a Podcast. Ooh, Dr. Death. I'm going to put it in Love That for Me. Oh, if you haven't listened to this, you definitely should. It's an investigative podcast, and as the title suggests, it covers the intersection of true crime and medicine. The host is an investigative journalist, and she interviews people and does research on specific cases of egregious, violent malpractice that often bleeds into other criminal charges. When it first came out, it was a miniseries about this super disturbing case of Dr. Christopher Dunch. Still gives me the chills thinking about it. It was later extended to a recurring series, and each subsequent season has been about a different doctor who has committed some horrible malpractice. You have to be a subscriber to Wondery now to listen to any further episodes. So I haven't listened to the most recent seasons. If you have a Wondery subscription, I would recommend it. It is very scary. Don't listen to it before you fall asleep. Next, Whiting Longs. This was a podcast hosted by Dan Harmon, creator of Community and Rick and Morty, and Jessica Gao, a writer on Rick and Morty. Dan is conditionally white Jewish, and Jessica is Chinese American. They would discuss race and pop culture. Sometimes it was a little bit cringe, not gonna lie, but for the most part, it was pretty good. They made 1 or 2 seasons. I listened to the entirety of it. By the end, it got more cringe. And now, of course, it's been tainted because of all of the behind the scenes drama of Rick and Morty. I've tried 3 or 4 times to watch Rick and Morty, and I just could never get into it because it was so gross, misogynistic, and bleh. No wonder it was bad. It was co-created by a domestic abuser. I'm going to put it in Everybody Gets a Podcast. It's not a bad listen, but the cringe factor and the BTS drama decreases its appeal. Doing It with Hannah Witten. If you don't know Hannah Witten, she is a YouTube creator who focuses on sex education. I have an off and on parasocial relationship with her. I've gone through phases where I binged all her content and then was like, I don't really like this anymore. She gives me white feminist Taylor Swift vibes. I would unsubscribe and then a couple years later come back. When I was in the most recent on period, I was a religious listener. She interviews a bunch of different people about different sex education related topics. I'm going to put in Everybody Gets a Podcast. There's good information. There's good interviews. It's well produced and well written, but I disagree with her a lot on certain topics. She's definitely in the sex positivity and body positivity movements. I am not. I consider myself a radical feminist in the body neutrality and sex neutrality schools of thought. A lot of stuff that she does is not helpful to the feminist cause. Next, Welcome to Nightville. If you haven't heard about Welcome to Nightville by now, I don't know what to say to you. Google it. I was such a huge fan years ago when it first came out. I even went to go see them live once. I loved it. Freshman, maybe sophomore year of high school, they had a big finale episode. So I was like, oh, okay, it's over. When I was doing research for this video, I found out that they've made like another 200 episodes since that quote unquote finale. And I was like, what? As much as I loved it, I probably won't start listening to it again. I still have 2 of the live episodes downloaded in Apple Music. Remember the time, like 2013, 2014, when Apple Music was still iTunes? I bought these episodes. I also have, look at this. This is one of the few pieces of merch I have ever bought from anything. I've never really been a merch girly. This mug is hella dusty, but I still have it. I am going to put it in Love That For Me. If you've never listened to Welcome to Night Vale and you like spooky, scary things, would recommend. Next, Perfect Person with Miles Bonsignore. If you don't know, he's one of the people who works at the Try Guys company. I have listened to a few episodes of this on YouTube. It's fine. It's boring. It goes and Everybody Gets a Podcast. The Cool Table. I follow Beth, who's one of the co-creators of The Cool Table on TikTok. She is a pretty well-known book talker, and I do like her content, especially about Bridgerton. She's my main source of Bridgerton goss. She has a podcast with a couple of other people. I've listened to a few episodes on YouTube. I'm not a religious listener. And honestly, I do not like her podcast as much as I like her TikTok content. Maybe because I'm not really fans of the other people. I'm going to put in Everybody Gets a Podcast. Then we have Shits and Gigs. I've watched 1 or 2 full episodes on YouTube, but mostly I've seen clips of them on TikTok. There are some of those men that are trying to be feminist, but still hold pretty sexist and misogynistic views that they don't address, and they use misogynistic slurs. A very small part of me is like, okay, appreciate the attempt. The rest of me is like, this is fake. You're not actually doing any of the work. This is going in, stop giving men microphones. Oh, wow, the colors almost match. It's almost like their own branding is showing us the red flag. Just saying. Just saying. Pretty big deal. Ashley Graham. I listened to at least a season of this on Apple Podcasts. I've also seen some of the video versions on YouTube. I did really like this at the time. I thought Ashley Graham was cool. It's a pretty good podcast and feminist in a lot of ways. But looking back, celebrity podcasts are cringe. I'm going to downgrade it to Are You Not Embarrassed? Also, she's a devout Christian. From her public persona, she seems like a more progressive Christian, but I just don't trust it. There's a whole class of celebrities who specifically put I'm a Christian in their social media bios and on their Wikipedia page, and it's very hit or miss. She could secretly be a Chris Pratt type. You just can't know. My mental health as a Jewish woman really cannot take any more quote unquote progressive Christians who actually believe that people of every other religion, especially Jews like myself, need to convert or die. I would rather not find out. Next, Meet Cute. It's a fictional podcast. It's a rom-com anthology series. Every season is a different self-contained rom-com. On paper, it sounds right up my alley. When I actually listened to it, it was not. I can't exactly put a finger on what bothered me about it, but I tried several episodes of several different seasons, so several different stories, and I could not get into any of them. I just was not a fan. I listened to all of these on Apple Podcasts. This is going in Are You Not Embarrassed? Because honestly, it's kind of cringy. New day, same shit. Up next, Limetown. I loved this show. That is going to go in Love That for me. It's excellent. I would highly recommend if you're into podcasts of the spooky, scary variety. We have a bit of a theme here. It's a fictional mystery podcast, and it follows an investigative journalist as she tries to figure out what happened in this place called Limetown, which was a company town surrounding a manufacturing plant. One day, all the people who lived there disappeared without a trace. There's some government cover-up. There's some sci-fi elements. Limetown had a 2 or 3 season run, which I listened to all of on Apple Podcasts. It has since been turned into a TV series, but I have no interest in watching it because when I saw the trailer, they had ruined the magic of the original show. I feel like I need to rethink my life. Do I really just like things about spooky towns in the desert? Maybe. Is that a genre? I'm going to make it a genre. Next. Modern Love. I'm going to put that in good vibes only. Modern Love is a New York Times column where readers submit their modern love story. Usually romantic love, but sometimes they're about the love between friends or relatives. I have never read the column, but a few years ago, the New York Times made a podcast of the same name. Every episode features a famous actor reading an essay that appeared in the column. At the end, it'll usually feature an interview with the writer. I was a religious listener for a couple of years, and then I fell off it as I was coming out of my podcast obsession phase. I probably listened to the first 2 or 3 seasons, all on Apple Podcasts. There's also a TV show based off of Modern Love, which turns the essays into episodes as part of an anthology series on Amazon Prime. I have watched all of those. They're quite good. Now there are several spin-offs, which are on my list, but have not seen yet. Moving on. The comment section with Drew Afwala. I'm going to put it in good vibes. Definitely be a fan. I've only really watched clips of it on TikTok. I haven't listened to any full episodes. It's because I'm not in a podcast phase right now. And even if I was, most of the stuff that I like is fictional. So her interview-based podcast is not necessarily what I would gravitate towards. Definitely going to keep it on deck for whenever my next podcast obsession phase is. Ooh, Tanis. That has to go in. Love that for me. Absolutely love it. It is another fictional podcast, also spooky and scary. It follows a journalist investigating the mystery of something called Tanis, which is this entity that several cults have been formed around. It's part government conspiracy, part corporate conspiracy, part cult stuff, part investigative journalism. The format is set up as if it is nonfiction. These fictional characters are superimposed on the real world rather than being part of a fictional world of their own. Everybody knows that it's fictional, but the creators have never acknowledged that it is. Both the investigative journalist character and the actor are referenced as real people in the universe. The fictional journalist is listed as an executive producer of the podcast. The actor who voices the journalist is listed as an executive producer of the podcast and also makes a few cameos as a fictionalized version of himself, who is the journalist's cousin and a radio producer. It's complicated. While doing some research for this video, I discovered that Tanis has 3 more seasons than I thought it did. I thought that the show ended after the 2nd or 3rd season, so that's all I had listened to on Apple Podcasts. Next is the Man Enough podcast. This is Justin Baldoni's podcast. I'm going to put this in Everybody Gets a Podcast. I've watched several episodes of this on YouTube. It's an interview and discussion-based podcast that is attempting to break down toxic masculinity. I appreciate the attempt, but I don't think it goes far enough. I don't agree with a lot of the opinions on feminism and toxic masculinity that have been expressed on the podcast. In terms of topic, I'm not really interested in listening to men talk. I get why it exists. I'm glad it exists to a certain extent, but it's not something that I'm interested in listening to, and I don't think it actually does all of the work it seems to pat itself on the back for. It's a mixed bag. Next, you can sit with that. I think this also goes in Everybody Gets a Podcast. I have watched several episodes on YouTube, and I do like it, but it's not my favorite. It's not that distinguishable from any of the Try Guys' other podcasts. The only difference is that it's hosted by the Try Guys' significant others. And I like all of them as people, but I have qualms about involving your partner who doesn't work at your job in your job and profiting off of your relationship. It's a little suspicious. Next, Simply Podlogical. That is Simply Nailogical, aka Christine's podcast. I have watched a few episodes on YouTube, and I wasn't really a fan. The episodes are really long, and she doesn't really say or do anything different. I think it has to go on Are You Not Embarrassed? She's one of those people online who I like, but only at arm's length. There's something off that I can't put my finger on. Not that she's necessarily a bad person. As far as I know, she hasn't done or said anything terrible, but something about the vibes are just off. Her podcast is boring, so that's where it goes. My show, I can do what I want. Dear Prudence. We love Dear Prudence. That's going in. Love that for me. It's one of my favorites. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I was an avid listener for years. Slate has maybe half a dozen advice columns. All of these different advice columns have their own podcast. The longest running one is Dear Prudence, which is their general advice column. And I'm a big fan. I got into the podcast and the column around the beginning of Danny Lavery's tenure. I like Danny a lot. He is no longer Prudence, and I haven't really read the column or listened to the podcast since. It also coincided with when I got out of my podcast obsession phase and when Slate decided to make both the column and the show membership only, which I just never got around to getting. Would recommend. I listened to all the episodes on Apple Podcasts. Next, Dropouts. Oh, this is immediately going and stop giving men microphones. I've only seen clips on YouTube Shorts and TikTok, but what I've seen, I really hate. It's two 20-something white dudes, and for a while, this one teenage, yes, that's right, teenage white girl making a podcast about nothing. Not in a Seinfeld way. Literally about nothing. If that wasn't bad enough, one of the 20-something male hosts started dating the 18-year-old female host, which is gross. It's literally a predatory relationship. And then they broke up and it was messy. It just all went downhill from there. Zayn and Heath Unfiltered. It goes in Stop Giving Men Microphones. I have seen a few episodes on YouTube. I skipped through. I find Zayn and Heath to be individually problematic and cringe. I don't even remember, what is their weird little YouTuber group called? I don't know. Their whole group is fucking weird and incestuous and suspect. The two of them together are like a little nightmare tornado of men doing stupid shit. The podcast is bad. Not just because of them and their personalities, but there's literally nothing going on. The only good episodes of this podcast are when Zayn's sister Hidayah is on, because she's just spends the entire time roasting the two of them. Girl needs her own show. Next, Thrilling Adventure Hour. Going in. Love that for me. This is one of the first podcasts I ever listened to after Welcome to Night Vale. I really love it. I listened to it on Apple Podcasts. At the time, I listened every week. It's very nostalgic for me. This is yet another one where I thought that the show was over because they had a big finale episode, but later they pulled a Tom Brady and were like, actually, I unretire. Here are some more episodes. I only listened to the original run. It's a cult classic in the podcast world. It basically is a group of famous actors who put on a modern version of a classic 50s radio variety show. And it's really funny. It's made up of half a dozen serials. Each episode of the podcast includes the next 10, 15-minute installment of each of the serials. One of them is about this ridiculous New York socialite couple and their hijinks. One of the two main characters is played by Paget Brewster, who's just fantastic. One is like a cowboy space western starring Nathan Fillion. It makes sense when you think about the fact that he was the star of Firefly. Mark Evan Jackson is in it. There are all these incredibly talented actors. All the stories are hysterical. One of the things that makes me not want to listen to the new episodes, though, is that I have since learned that Nathan Fillion is kind of a shit person. Reddit on Wiki. This is one of 8,000 Reddit podcasts that I've listened to. I don't think I've ever listened to a full episode. I've just watched clips on TikTok. It's a fun time. It's not really distinguishable from all of the other Reddit podcasts. The only thing that's different is that they're Canadian. That's it. Next. This one is just a picture of D'Angelo Wallace's channel picture. Remember that time a couple years ago when he had a podcast for a hot second? I watched it on YouTube. I really only remember there being an episode about him taking the political compass test. The podcast was maybe 2 episodes at most. I was into it. I guess he decided not to go forward with it. And then, as part of his content purge, he got rid of the episodes. I can't find them anymore. I don't even remember what it was called. I'm going to put it in good vibes because it was a good vibe for me. The Basement Yard. Everybody and their mother knows what this is. I haven't seen any full episodes. I've watched some clips on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. I can see why people like it. I personally don't. It's going in, are you not embarrassed? It's not the worst of the worst. The guys who host the show seem like decent human beings, but the two of them are just talking about nothing. That's not really my thing. Next, Pop Culture Detective audio file. I'm a big fan of Pop Culture Detective, the YouTube channel. I've watched their entire catalog. I have listened to a few episodes of the podcast, which are all posted on YouTube. It's an interview-based podcast where the host of Pop Culture Detective interviews people who are experts about like representation and feminism and all kinds of progressive themes in media. I like the podcast. It's good. I just don't like it as much as their regular videos. I think Good Vibes is the right fit there. Next, Head in the Office. I don't think I've ever listened to a full episode, but I do follow them on TikTok. I think it goes in Good Vibes. It's a political discussion podcast hosted by these two 20-something guys who are progressive. I like their personalities. I like their dynamic as friends. I agree with a lot of their opinions, if not most of them, from what I've seen. At the end of the day, it's two white men discussing politics, so take it with a grain of salt. Political podcasts are not my go-to. I mostly gravitate towards the fictional stuff. Next, Comfort Level Podcast. If you haven't seen this, it's another Reddit podcast. I've never seen a full episode. I've only seen clips on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, but I like what I've seen. I think it's my favorite of the Reddit podcasts that I have listened to. Zach Sang Show. I do like this. I'm not an avid listener by any means, but I have seen several full episodes on YouTube. There are interviews with a few people that I think are questionable, and I personally have a limit to how much celebrity content I can take. I'm just fed up with celebrities as a concept, to be honest. It's not the best of the best, but it's pretty good. Next, Sierra Unfiltered. This podcast has since been rebranded as 20 whatever, and one of the hosts has been replaced. This is the only icon I could find that had the old logo. I kind of have mixed feelings about this one. I liked it at the time. I was an avid listener for a while. I watched the video versions on YouTube. I can't really remember anything specific about it, which I feel like tells you a lot. It was hosted by two white Christian women. There's only so much tolerance I have. I think it's going to go in Everybody Gets a Podcast. Running out of room here. It's not really a standout. Honestly, it's funny that I've just happened to put it next to You Can Sit With Us because I feel like those two shows are basically the same thing in different fonts, you know? Next, Sold in America with Noor Tagore. Ooh, it is immediately going and love that for me. This show was so fucking good. It was a mini-series from 2019, I think, hosted by this amazing radio and TV journalist named Noor Tagore. She's a young millennial, very talented. Basically, it follows her as she investigates sex trafficking and sex work in the United States. She interviews activists, experts, people who have been trafficked, former and current sex workers. It covers every aspect of human sex trafficking and touches on different parts of the sex industry. She's incredibly smart and talented and a great interviewer. Now that I'm thinking about it, this show definitely sparked my radical feminism journey. It put into words a lot of opinions I had started to form about how exploitative and misogynistic the sex industry is and how overlooked human trafficking is. Parts of it are stomach churning and can be triggering, but if you're up for it, I would definitely give it a listen. Let's see. The tripod. I think it has to go and stop giving men microphones. I've listened to several episodes, or rather watched the full length video on YouTube. It's boring. The episodes are way too fucking long. And it, it's dwindled in quality and hosts over time. Obviously, Ned should not be hosting jack shit, but it's gone from 4 to 3 to 2 hosts in the span of a year. The two-person dynamic is just not the same. They talk about nothing for an hour and a half. Who cares? Next, the Judgies. This is another Reddit podcast. I'm going to put it in Everybody Gets a Podcast. I do like it. It's not my favorite. It's just run-of-the-mill Reddit podcast. Very basic. Ooh, the Black Tapes. I really liked the Black Tapes. It's going to go and love that for me. It's another spooky, scary, fictional podcast. This one is paranormal. It's about this investigative journalist who gets sucked into investigating the Black Tapes, a series of tapes collected by a paranormal investigator who's trying to determine which tapes include actual paranormal occurrences and which ones don't. It's fascinating. There was only 1 or 2 seasons, and I listened to all of it on Apple Podcasts. It was a contained series. That's a nice, shorter commitment if you're into the spooky, scary stuff. Two Dope Queens. I really did like this show. I'm going to put it in Good Vibes Only. This was a comedy variety show hosted by friends/comedians Jessica Williams and Phoebe Robinson. They're both wicked funny on their own, and they're magic together. They had lots of special guests on, and it was a good time. It was several seasons. I listened to all of it on Apple Podcasts. It ended abruptly. The sort of unexpected end of the show seems to line up with when Jessica Williams' longtime boyfriend died. I'm not sure if that was the specific reason, but it seemed like it might be connected, so that's sad. There was also a TV show at some point, which I never watched. Next, Baby Steps. This was the Try Guys parenting podcast hosted by Ned and Ariel. That's aged well. I'm going to put it in Stop Giving Men Microphones. I like Ariel. She seems cool, but obviously Ned is trash. Even before all the stuff came out about him having an affair with an employee, yikes. He always came off as the embodiment of weaponized incompetence, hiding behind goofy white boy charm. So that was fucking annoying. I listened to a few full episodes on YouTube just because I was curious. And after a few episodes, I was like, okay, that's enough for me. Next, So Many White Guys, hosted by Phoebe Robinson. After Two Dope Queens ended, Phoebe Robinson started her own podcast through the same studio. It was similar to Two Dope Queens, but more interview based. I listened to several episodes on Apple Podcasts and then fell off it. I didn't like it as much as Two Dope Queens. I don't know if it's still airing new episodes or not. I think it goes in Everybody Gets a Podcast, unfortunately. I would love to put it higher, but the way that the format turned out made it a lot more similar to a million other comedy podcasts. In my head, I was comparing it to Two Dope Queens, and it didn't measure up because I just missed the chemistry of their friendship. Maybe that's unfair on my part, but it's just where my head was at. Next, Missing and Murdered. I'm going to put that in Love That for me, not because I love when people go missing and are murdered, But because it's a really excellent show, this is a podcast produced by this Canadian broadcasting company. This investigative journalist is an Indigenous woman from Canada, I believe. Each season, she investigates a cold case of the disappearance and or murder of an Indigenous woman or child. She's an excellent investigator, great storyteller, great narrator, great interviewer. It's a very important topic, but the material is really hard to listen to because it is so heart-wrenching. At every turn, you think, come on, it can't get worse. And I say this as a very cynical person. And then it gets worse. And you're just like, humanity is terrible. It's very depressing and triggering, but it is definitely worth a listen. I have not finished it yet, but I'm hoping to this summer. Next is Dear Sugar. There was a romance advice column called Dear Sugar, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was made into a podcast hosted by Cheryl Strayed, who was Sugar at the time, and Steve Almond. It's the two of them giving advice to listeners who write in. I liked it. I'm going to put it in good vibes only. I listened to all the episodes on Apple Podcasts. If it is still going, I haven't listened to any of the episodes that came out after like 2019. I don't remember why I stopped listening. It was probably another one that I didn't like enough to keep listening to when I got out of my podcast girly phase. Last day, same shit. We got 12 shows to go. Next, Adulting with Michelle Buteau and Jordan Carlo. Good vibes only. I really liked this podcast. It was made by the same studio that did Two Dope Queens and So Many White Guys. Came out probably around 2018. I think there was only 1 or 2 seasons. It was a combination of discussion and stand-up comedy about finding the humor in life. Michelle and Jordan are really funny individually. They have great chemistry as co-hosts and friends. I was an avid listener on Apple Podcasts, and then either the show stopped or my podcast phase ended. Next up, Teachers Off Duty. This podcast is a group of teachers talking about different topics related to teaching. I got into it when I was a teacher last year, and it was one of the few things that got me through the craziness of that year. That goes in Are You Not Embarrassed? A recent episode of the show was bashing students on IEPs, individualized education plans, students with disabilities. That was bad. Up until that point, I had really liked the podcast. I watched a bunch of clips on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. I have also watched a few full episodes on YouTube. Lauren, the instigator of this whole mess, her vibes have always been off. And the 2 men who made rude comments are not getting enough shit. Just to be clear. It was more the other people on the show that I liked. It can come back from this if they take some serious steps to remedy the situation, namely bringing back the previous hosts of the show instead of people who decided that this was an appropriate thing to say about children. Next, Hit the Break with Bradley, Stephen Perry, and Jake Shore. I'm going to put that and stop giving men microphones. This is a podcast hosted by 2 former Disney stars who are now in their mid-20s. From what I have seen of it, which has mostly been clips on YouTube Shorts, it's boring and frat bro-esque, indistinguishable from a million other podcasts where men just sit around talking about nothing. If there was a subgenre of celebrity podcast I would be interested in, it would be about the experiences of child stars. If I were going to pick one, I would probably pick one made by a woman, because let's be honest, it's the female stars who get the brunt of the bullshit in Hollywood, and I would rather listen to women talking. Next, The Glow Show. This is Hannah Glow's podcast, or was. I don't know what she's doing with it because she hosted it with her now ex-husband. It was a discussion-based podcast. It was just the two of them discussing different social and political topics. It was interesting to see two regular people discuss progressive politics. I watched several episodes on YouTube. Political shows aren't really my thing. The episodes were wicked long and not always the most captivating. I guess everybody gets a podcast because it's fine. Next, last name basis. This was Francesca Ramsey's podcast with her now ex-husband. A little bit of a theme here. It was their podcast where they discussed anything and everything. There was some cultural commentary on what it means to be in an interracial couple. Some episodes were interesting. I listened to several episodes on Apple Podcasts and I just fell off it because I was bored with it, and then they broke up not long after. I'm going to put it in Stop Giving Men Microphones. Let's be honest, Francesca Ramsey was the real star, and I side with her in the breakup. Anything that has been touched by her ex-husband is a no-go. The H3 podcast, if you don't know what this is, you've been living under an internet rock. It's immediately going in Stop Giving Men Microphones. I've seen a few episodes on YouTube, plus a bunch of clips on YouTube Shorts. Has Ethan gotten slightly better over the past couple years? Maybe. Do I care? Nope. Why? Because he is trash and associates himself with people like Trisha Paytas. It's especially disappointing considering he's Jewish, and Trisha Paytas is one of the biggest anti-Semites with a public platform. And she masquerades as if she's not. Fucking annoying. Next, very, really good. This is Curtis Connor's podcast. I've watched several episodes on YouTube and seen some clips on YouTube Shorts and TikTok here and there. It was fine. It wasn't really that interesting to me. I think it belongs here in Are You Not Embarrassed? It's not that interesting, and I don't really want to listen to men. Next, the Pink Popcast. I'm a big fan of the Pink Popcast, the reaction channel on YouTube, and this is their podcast. It was actually the flagship media from which they launched their YouTube channel. I've seen several episodes on YouTube. I think I might have listened to a couple on Apple Podcasts as well. The podcast is fine. It's definitely not as good as their regular YouTube channel. It goes in Everybody Gets a Podcast. They're feminist and progressive, especially for two men. But I have some qualms about some of the things they say on both the podcast and their regular video. They both use misogynistic slurs, despite the fact that they have absolutely no right to reclaim them. Do with that what you will. Last row. Next, The World at Large, Battleground. This is going in good vibes only. About 10 years ago, Hulu put out their first scripted series, this sitcom called Battleground. Think Parks and Rec times The West Wing, but about a state senate campaign. A mockumentary that follows the campaign staff of a specific state senator. It was really smart and funny. The cast had great chemistry. It was canceled after one season and revived for a second season in podcast form on this UK3 radio program called The World at Large. After I watched the TV show, I listened to the podcast sequel on Apple Podcasts. The podcast was not quite as good as the show, but almost. Unfortunately, just like the TV series, it abruptly ended after a single season. Fans like myself were left on a cliffhanger not once, but twice. Lovers and Friends. This is Shan Booty's podcast. I'm going to put it in Are You Not Embarrassed? I've listened to a couple of episodes on Apple Podcasts. Full disclosure, I don't like Shan Booty. I have seen some of her content, and the vibes are off. When I think about what is wrong with liberal feminism, the sex positivity movement and body positivity movement, and the sexual revolution, Shan Boody is one of the people I point to as an example. This is not helpful. It doesn't actually work towards equality. It's not going all the way at the bottom because I think there are some merits to certain episodes, but overall, why? Second to last, Getting Curious with Jonathan Van Ness, an oldie but a goodie. I don't listen to this anymore, but when I did, I listened to seasons upon seasons on Apple Podcasts. Jonathan interviews experts on a bunch of different topics to answer questions that he has about the world around us. It's a good show. I'm going to find Good Vibes Only where it belongs. Last but not least, the Bodega Boys. This one's tricky because I do love the Bodega Boys. I got into them during their most recent TV show, Desus and Mero on Showtime, which recently ended. After I became a fan, I went back and listened to several episodes of Bodega Boys. The flagship podcast launched their careers. I was not a fan. In comparison to the TV show, the podcast is just bad. They have enormous potential and amazing chemistry as co-hosts and friends, but the episodes are so long. They are about nothing, which I understand is the point. Their whole brand is it's just two guys from the Bronx shooting the shit. I just can't listen to men talk about nothing for 2 hours. It might have to go and stop giving men microphones. That is the last podcast. Oh my God, amazing. The messiness is bothering me, and I'm disagreeing with myself about where I put things. We might need to shift a few things around. The first thing that's catching my eye here is Whiting Wongs. I'm going to move it to Are You Not Embarrassed? Because honestly, how are you not? The two hosts, they're attempting to be progressive, right? But a lot of times it seemed like they were too busy making jokes to actually take the topics seriously. At certain points, it went past humor to cope with the rough situation that is racism in Hollywood into joining in and making fun of marginalized people. Also, the tangential association with Justin Roiland is not something that I can overlook. Next thing I'm seeing that I'm disagreeing with is Doing It. I think it also goes in Are You Not Embarrassed? A lot of what she's covered on the show very much falls into the white feminism, liberal feminism, sex positivity, sexual revolution stuff that I disagree with. Her show ends up promoting a lot of harmful ideas under the guise of sexual liberation. There's all these things under the umbrella of women's sexual liberation that is actually not liberating at all and still serves men in our patriarchal system. She has way too much content promoting all kinds of things that feed into misogyny and patriarchy, like kinks, fetishes, BDSM, hookup culture, and sex work, and not in a critical or constructive way, in very much a sex positive kind of way. The next thing that catches my eye is Perfect Person. I think that is also going to go in Stop Giving Men Microphones. I personally don't know of anything that's specifically bad about it, but it's boring. It's run of the mill. He talks about nothing. Like, just why? Why do we have this? You know what I mean? The next one that catches my eye is Man Enough. That is also going to move down to Stop Giving Men Microphones. This podcast is very surface level about a very complex topic, and as a result, their conversations are not necessarily that helpful in moving towards gender equality. If you're not helping, you're hurting, and down you go. The next thing I'm seeing is You Can Sit With Us. I'm going to move it down to Are You Not Embarrassed? This is not because of the hosts of the show. I don't have anything against them. They seem like decent, cool people, and I do follow some of them individually. This is more on the Try Guys themselves. Similar to how it's weird to monetize your children on family channels, It's very weird to monetize your relationship with your partner. I'm just gonna move comfort level down because it's actually more what's more basic than a Reddit podcast. I'm gonna do the same with Zach Sang show because, like I mentioned earlier, he has had some questionable guests on. It's a good show, but certain people he's interviewed don't need more of a platform than they already have. So I'm happy with that. That's accurate. However, this still looks wicked messy. It's bothering me. So I'm gonna fix it. Ta-da! We are finished. This looks a lot better. With that, we are finally done with the podcast rankings. I hope you enjoyed this. I really like tier ranking things for no reason at all. Argue with me in the comments if you want. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye.